Hey friends, this is Tim Wolf. Today I want to talk about Ukraine. What's happening in Ukraine right now with Russia invading has a very, very real impact to me and my buddy Jimmy because we spent 3 weeks touring in Ukraine, playing music last fall, August, and September. I want to talk a bit about that and what we learned about Ukraine and what it was like. So I'm Tim Wolf. I'm a Nashville singer-songwriter, and you can listen to some of my music down below in the description. There's a link to some of my music. I have a new single coming out. I have a new album coming out in July. If you're interested in that album, please subscribe to my channel, and there'll be more information coming about that. Last August, my buddy Jimmy D and I went to the Ukraine and we played a number of gigs there, and we literally fell in love with the country. Ukraine is such a beautiful country. It's a very large country. It's one of the largest countries in Europe, landmass-wise. There's three main things that I would like to talk about regarding the summary of Ukraine. People, the potential, as well as the poverty, and the products, the food, that sort of thing. So the people, first of all, we made some wonderful friends in Ukraine, and we're still in contact with them today. Wonderful, wonderful people, just big hearts, and they've been through a lot. Ukraine, it's had a history that goes way back over 1,000 years, and they've had a lot of fighting and a lot of difficulties throughout the history. Ukraine was part of Poland at one time. Ukraine was part of the Russian Empire before the Bolshevik Revolution, and then right after the Bolshevik Revolution, Ukraine got its independence for about 3 years, around 1920, but that didn't last long. They were reconquered by the Soviet Union, and they were swallowed up by the Soviet Union. And during World War II, between Soviet troops and Russian troops, they lost 8 million people. And this is a country that is less than half the size of the United States. And so they were part of the Soviet Union until 1991, when the collapse of the Soviet Union came and they were able to get their independence. And so they're a baby country, really, as far as a democracy. It's only been 31 years since they've gotten their independence, and they're fighting like hell to keep it. And if you think about, for Americans, many of us don't even realize that, yes, 1776 is when we got our independence. That's the time we declared independence on July 4th, 1776. It was signed in Philadelphia, our Declaration of Independence. We had a war with Britain to get our independence, and that lasted another 3 or 4 years. And we didn't have our Constitution, our constitutional government, until a number of years later, almost 25 years later. I mean, we had the first Constitutional Congress, the second Constitutional Congress, and those things were not ideal. And so we didn't end up with our, vaunted Constitution. Constitutional scholars, everybody talks about the Constitution, but we didn't have that. We didn't have our first president until about 1890. Comparing to the United States, we declared independence in 1776, but we didn't get our current form of government until 1789. It took us 13 years before we could get our Constitution in order, and our first president, George Washington, didn't start serving until 1789. It's 13 years from the time we declared war. Now it's been 31 years since Ukraine got their independence, but nonetheless, that's not a long time. They're still a baby country. They're fighting like hell to keep their independence. Our takeaway, first about the people, is people with a big heart, and we made some great friends. We're still in contact with them, checking in, making sure they're okay. Our driver, Sasha, he was our driver for the first week, was an amazing guy in his mid-20s, just big heart. Didn't speak great English, but we had a lot of jokes using Google Translate and his broken English. He had some English. He could understand more than he could probably say. We were laughing constantly, and sometimes even Google Translate would do a poor job of translating Ukrainian, and he would make a joke about that. And we just had a great time with him. He's living in Kiev, and he messaged my buddy, and he was and showed a video with bombs going off, and he was definitely, you could hear in his voice that he was definitely scared. Then he sent a message to Jimmy saying that he had joined the military to defend his homeland, and this guy has no military experience. And our heart goes out to him. I hope that he survives. I mean, Russia is just bombing civilians right now. We made other great friends. Andrew was our last gig in Ukraine. He was the promoter that set it up, and a phenomenal guy, just big heart. We met some fellow musicians. One of the guys we met, his name is Alex, and he's probably one of the smartest guys either of us have ever met. Went to China, learned Chinese, came back, went to Russia, and is teaching the Russians how to speak Chinese. Chinese language is incredibly difficult to learn. Just an absolute brilliant guy, IQ off the charts. He was making jokes in English with the nuances. When you learn a second language, and I learned Japanese and I learned some Italian. Both of those have eroded as far as my skill set goes. If you don't use it, you start losing it. But he would make, the last thing you can get is the comedy, the subtle understanding of the slang and those sort of things. When you try to make a joke in a second language, it's a very difficult thing to first of all understand it and then to make the jokes. And Alex was making jokes with perfect timing and with understanding the nuances of the cultures, comparing even the UK and the US culture and standing in the world, that sort of thing. And his jokes were absolutely hilarious. This guy's absolutely a brilliant guy. And when we talked to him, he said, I'm stranded here. There's nothing I can do, because they do have, the economy is relatively poor. They're not one of the wealthier countries in the world. Even if you have great potential, it's difficult to escape. And it was hard. Sasha said that he wanted to come to the US, and we wanted to have him come to the US, but it's hard. It was hard because they had a limit on visas. They didn't want people leaving because a lot of people wanted to leave. You don't want a brain drain where your best people are leaving and going to other countries. And so they put a great limit on allowing visas to allow people to leave. Now it's a different story. There's millions of people leaving the country as refugees and trying to save their lives, take their kids with them, whatever it would be, because the Russians are bombing the civilians. The Russians are being ruthless. Putin is just beyond evil as far as I'm concerned. Talking about the people, just very admirable people. And Ukraine has a reputation for great, beautiful women. And I found that to be true. A lot of beautiful women. So the people are absolutely amazing. Big hearts, putting up with a lot, trying to lift their country off the ground. The second thing, as far as the potential and also the poverty, we were surprised at the level. I guess you get used to living in a developed country and you expect certain amenities. And it wasn't there. Some of the hotels we stayed in was like, I can't believe that we're actually staying in this hotel. And is this actually livable conditions? I guess it's better than living under a bridge in a tent. That was interesting, but on the other hand, the potential is absolutely amazing. Coming from an ag background, Ukraine has some of the most fertile ground in the world. And they do a lot of exporting of grain. In fact, with this war going on, there's a lot of talk about the fact that there'll be a spike in food costs because Ukraine is a major source of a lot of food in the world. Ukraine has incredible large areas of fertile farmland.
That's exactly what it fucking looks like.
Are we in Indiana? Are we in South Dakota? I mean, you got sunflowers growing. This could be any Midwestern state in South Dakota, northern Midwestern state.
Looks like Indiana, north of Indianapolis.
Well, I don't think they grow sunflowers there, but
No sunflowers.
they do grow sunflowers in South Dakota. It's beautiful. Beautiful country. This is the Ukraine, by the way, if you're watching this video, you didn't know. Just about the time you think you're in the Midwest, you come across the Orthodox Church, and you'll know that you're not in Kansas anymore. The thing I noticed being a farmer as we drove by, like a lot of sunflowers, corn, different things growing, the height of the plants was very low. and which indicated to me that there was almost no fertilizer and chemicals being used to maximize the potential. And so actually, about halfway through the trip, I started talking to people that I would meet that would speak English and asking, what are the potential of buying land here in Ukraine, because it would be inexpensive and the potential was just amazing. They do have some ports where they can export the grain, and I thought, this is a sleeping giant. And so I was wondering about the possibility, because I'm also an entrepreneur, about the possibility of buying land, farmland in Ukraine, because I was that impressed and with my knowledge of agricultural industry. And the conclusion was it was very difficult to do that, and they made it very difficult for outsiders, non-Ukrainian citizens, to buy land. And I understand that a lot of countries are doing that. They don't want their land to be bought up by foreigners. Nonetheless, the potential, the raw material potential there, and also raw materials, mining. Ukraine is a very rich country as far as that. But there is the government practices. I remember we had a 2-hour drive from where we were at, Smila, S-M-I-L-A. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. That was our last gig, and we were going to Kiev, and it was a 2-hour drive. The gentleman who took us, we hired him to take us. There were a lot of roads, bad roads. We had to get off the road because it would be untravelable. He was saying about, we pay a lot of taxes for roads, but none of it gets onto repairing the roads. So there definitely is some corruption issues, and I think that's the case with any new government. That things have to be sorted out. As far as how it works, probably needs to be fine-tuned, but they're only a very, very young country, only 30 years that they've been in existence. So there are some things that need to be cleaned up as far as that goes. They were under Russia for so long, so they've incorporated a lot of those things. And in Russia, the oligarchs run the country, and you want to talk about corruption. Russia has more corruption than probably any country. I mean, you pay people off, you pay things off, and that's how it works. And I'm sure Ukraine, being under that influence for so many years, kind of adopted a lot of that. So they have to break out of that. And hopefully maybe this crisis, when they come out of it, hopefully this war won't last hopefully it doesn't last 10 years of the occupation in Ukraine. Who knows what the future is going to bring. But I hope that this isn't going to be a long-term thing. I hope that Russia will capitulate and go home, leave Ukraine to survive on its own and rebuild. But anyway, the potential for Ukraine is huge. The people are amazing, and the raw materials are there. Agriculture, certainly. That's the second part I want to talk about. And third, the products. I talked a little bit about it from the ag standpoint, but the food was absolutely amazing. There were 2 consecutive nights where we went out and we ate, and my buddy Jimmy says, that was the best meal I've ever had. And then the next night we had another meal. That was the best meal I've ever had. And I said, are you going to keep saying that? One keeps trumping the other. And it was funny, but the food was absolutely amazing, and we ate a lot, but we didn't put on any weight. And and also Jimmy has a lot of difficulties with acid reflux. And he said that even can't drink much coffee in the United States. Over there, he could drink coffee and it wasn't a problem. And also his acid reflux disappeared. Our conclusion was the food is cleaner. I don't know this scientifically, but our conclusion was the food was healthier. There was less processing, and I'm just guessing. Food, I think, was clean, and Jimmy's acid reflux didn't bother him. So the food was absolutely amazing. My heart goes out to Ukraine, and I really hope that this war will end quickly and that they can rebuild quickly. And I hope to go back and play music again. We played at a medieval festival. We were headlined at a medieval festival all day long. There's these guys out there and gals fighting in these full-blown 50 pounds of medieval armor. And I saw some of their weapons. These were serious weapons. These were sharp-edged swords. They didn't have that armor on. They would have been definitely injured. And they were hitting each other with full force. It was a contest that was judged. If you fell down, you were out. We played at the finale, and then after that they had fireworks. It was just a wonderful experience. People there with their families, and everybody was so gracious. And Ukraine's an amazing country, and I'm praying for Ukraine, and I really, really hope that this disaster will be ended soon. I can go back and play music and see all my friends that we made there. Catch you next time.
Hey everybody, this is Tim Wolf. Thank you so much for watching my video.
Please go to the link down below in the description. There's a Bitly link. Listen to my music at Spotify. I appreciate it very much. It means a lot to an artist if you follow them. If you would be kind enough to like the video if you enjoyed it and share it with your friends. Finally, be sure to subscribe. And also there are other videos on this screen that you can watch. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much.